She led them for 50 years. But when she took her final breath, what the herd did next shocked the world. Deep in the heart of the African savanna, an aging elephant named Mara had led her herd for 5 decades. Through droughts, famines, and poachers, she had protected them, guided them, and loved them like a mother. But now, her time was running out. Her body, once strong and mighty, had grown weak. Her steps slowed, and one fateful morning, Mara collapsed under the shade of an ancient baobab tree. The herd surrounded her, sensing something was terribly wrong. The youngest calf, barely 2 months old, nudged her massive body with his tiny trunk. "Get up, Mama! Please get up!" But Mara couldn't. The other elephants gathered, trumpeting softly. Her eldest daughter, Insnaya, stood closest, her deep, wise eyes filled with sorrow. Nia had followed Mara everywhere, learned from her, depended on her. Now, she was watching her mother slip away. Mara lifted her trunk one last time, touching Nia's face. And then, she was gone. A long, haunting silence filled the air. And then, something happened that no one expected. One by one, the elephants did something incredible. They lowered their heads. They reached out with their trunks, touching Mara's still body. Then, Nia did something that sent chills through the air. She let out a deep, guttural roar of grief. A sound that shook the earth beneath them, and every single elephant followed. The herd began to mourn. Together. Some rocking back and forth, some gently caressing Mara with their trunks, some trumpeting into the sky. They were not just a herd, they were a family saying goodbye. What happened next left even the most experienced elephant researchers in somewhat disbelief. One by one, the elephants began gathering branches, leaves, and grass. They weren't eating. They were covering Mara's body. It was their way of honoring her, their way of protecting her, even in death. And then, something no one expected happened. The youngest calf collapsed beside her. He lay down, pressing his small body against hers, refusing to leave her side. The other elephants stood around him, forming a circle of protection. They stood there for more than 2 days. After 2 long days, something remarkable happened. Nia, the new matriarch, took one last moment with her mother. She wrapped her trunk around Mara's, as if holding her hand one last time. Then, she turned to the herd. She let out a deep, commanding trumpet. And slowly, the elephants began to move forward. Not away from Mara, but forward, because that's what she would have wanted. As they left, the youngest calf turned one last time. His tiny trunk reached toward the sky. And in that moment, the wind picked up, rustling the trees, as if the spirit of Mara was whispering one final message. "Go on, my family. I will always be with you." In the days that followed, something even more astonishing was observed by researchers watching from a distance. Nia led the herd to a nearby watering hole, one that Mara had guided them to for years. They drank in silence, their movements slower, more deliberate. Even the playful young ones remained unusually subdued. That night, the herd slept in a tight formation, closer than ever before. The calves, who would usually wander and play, stayed huddled together, seeking comfort from one another. And Nia, she stood awake, watching over them, just like Mara had always done. Mara may have left, but her spirit still guided them. Weeks passed, and life moved forward, but Mara was never forgotten. Then, something remarkable happened. The herd, led by Nia, returned to the place where Mara had taken her last breath. Researchers had never seen anything like it. Elephants were known to mourn. But this was something deeper. One by one, the elephants touched the ground where Mara had lain. Some stood in silence. Others let out soft mourning trumpets. And then, the youngest calf, the one who had refused to leave her side, stepped forward. He reached down with his tiny trunk and picked up a dried branch. He placed it on the ground where Mara had rested. a final offering, a sign that even in death, she was still their leader. Mara may have taken her final breath, but her spirit never left them. Her wisdom lived on through Kintz, Nia. Her love lived on through Adtion, the herd. Her courage lived on through the tiny calf who would one day lead them himself. Because elephants never forget and love never dies. If this story touched your heart, hit that subscribe button, because true love never fades. Subscribe for more powerful stories.